You're worth $100 million, and your car has 214,000 miles on it. The passenger mirror has been held on with duct tape since March. You haven't noticed in months, which tells you something about how little the car matters to you and how much everything else does. Nobody in your life knows the real number. Not your dentist, not your barber, not the woman 2 pumps down who waves at you every Saturday morning at the gas station because you always fill up at the same time. You're not hiding from anyone. You just never gave anyone a reason to ask. And the strangest part of all of it is that the number didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived in a spreadsheet attachment while you were sitting in a plastic chair at an oil change shop, waiting for someone to tell you your brake pads were fine. This is what $100 million actually looks like from the inside. It starts at a gas station 11 years ago. Not a business plan, not a book you read, just a Tuesday evening when you stopped to fill up and noticed the ice vending machine out front had a handwritten, out of order, sign taped to it. And the one at the gas station across the street was always empty by 6 p.m. because nobody restocked it in time for the dinner rush. You'd never thought about who owned an ice machine before. You just bought the bag and left. But that night, standing there with the nozzle clicking off, you thought, someone owns this thing, and it's making money whether they show up or not. You went home and spent way too long that night trying to figure out how a machine like that actually works financially. What you found was a small, almost invisible industry. Vendors who place bagged ice machines on gas station lots, split the revenue with the property owner, and mostly just show up to restock and collect. A decent unit in a busy location could clear $300 to $600 a month after the location's cut and the electricity. Not retirement money. Barely a hobby. But you did the math anyway because the math is what got you. If one machine nets $400 a month, 5 machines net $2,000. 10 machines, run properly, in the right locations, and you're looking at something close to a part-time income that doesn't require you to be anywhere. What hooked you wasn't the number. It was the shape of it. The machine didn't need you to like it, show up to it emotionally invested, or perform any labor beyond restocking. It just sat there, solving a small, boring problem for strangers, and paying you every time someone needed ice. You bought your first machine used for $1,100, a little dented, missing one panel screw, and placed it outside a convenience store 2 towns over on a handshake deal with the owner for 18% of gross. First month, after the cut, after electricity, after 2 trips to refill the ice bin, you netted $210. Your coworker made more than that in 1 weekend shift of overtime. Nobody congratulated you. Nobody even knew there was anything to congratulate. You sat with that $210 on a Thursday night and felt something quiet, not quite pride, not quite disappointment, something closer to confirmation. The system worked. That's what mattered, not the number. So you added a second machine, then a third, and somewhere around the 4th one you stopped thinking about ice altogether and started thinking about self-storage the same way. Not as a renter looking for a unit, but as someone trying to understand who was cashing the check every month. You learned that a small rural self-storage facility, the kind with 40 or 50 units off a county road nobody thinks twice about, could run at 80 to 90% occupancy almost permanently because people's stuff doesn't go away when the economy dips. If anything, moves and downsizing during hard times fill storage units faster. There's no app disrupting a chain link fence and a gate code. Your first facility cost $61,000, 42 units, half of them already rented when you bought it. The seller was a retired railroad conductor named Walt who ran the whole operation out of a paper ledger and a flip phone, and who told you, half joking, that the hardest part of the business was remembering which gate code he'd given to which tenant. The books were messy. The cash flow underneath the mess was real. First year, it netted $19,000. You didn't celebrate. You used it as the down payment on the next one. This is the part nobody ever sees. Not the scaling, not the eventual size of it, just a person sitting at a kitchen table on a Tuesday night with a legal pad, doing arithmetic that would look completely unremarkable to anyone who glanced over your shoulder. A Tuesday observation becomes a Wednesday phone call, becomes a Thursday wire transfer, becomes something that, 11 years later, doesn't have a clean name yet. Your accountant's name is Priya. She's been doing books for small operators for over 20 years, and she does not impress easily. She's seen every version of chaos a small business owner can produce. She sits across from you at her office, flips through a folder you handed her summarizing everything you currently own, reads it slowly, and finally says, "This might be the most boring balance sheet I've ever reviewed." She means it as a mild dig. You take it as the highest compliment available, because boring was always the point. Here's what's in the folder. 6 self-storage facilities across 2 states, generating roughly $640,000 a year in gross rent, netting around $310,000 after taxes, maintenance, and a part-time site manager who handles the gate codes now so you don't have to. A small fleet of 41 ATMs placed in bars, laundromats, and convenience stores, machines you don't own outright but that you financed and lease out for a cut of every transaction fee, which nets a little over $70,000 a year, almost entirely passive, mostly forgotten about until the quarterly statement lands. 2 cell tower ground leases, land you bought specifically because a carrier had already built infrastructure on it and needed the dirt underneath more than you did. Long-term contracts, 25 and 30 years, with built-in rent escalations, paying a combined $54,000 a year whether you think about them or not. And the newest addition, a commercial uniform and linen supply company you bought 2 years ago from a man in his late 60s named Ron, who'd built it over 3 decades into something that mostly ran on inertia. Restaurants, auto shops, a couple of medical offices, contracts that renew quietly year after year, a business nobody will ever write a magazine profile about and one that has never once failed to make payroll. Priya asks if you've thought about anything with more upside, maybe some development land, maybe a stake in something growing fast. You tell her no. She nods the way people nod at an answer they respect but don't fully understand. What she doesn't say, and what almost nobody outside your own head ever articulates, is the logic underneath all of it. Every asset in that folder solves a need that doesn't disappear. People still need somewhere to put the things that don't fit in their house. Bars still need cash on hand. Restaurants still need clean tablecloths and uniforms whether the economy is up or down. There's no app that disrupts a gate code, no startup pitching venture capital on reinventing ice. The founders chasing multiple expansions and posting growth charts online are competing in markets where being interesting is the entry fee, and one bad quarter can undo 3 years of work. You are, on purpose, nowhere near those markets. You are in the markets nobody bothers to watch, the ones that keep running quietly long after the exciting thing 2 exits down the highway has shut its doors. You drive home from Priya's office in a 2009 Honda Accord with a cracked windshield you've meant to replace for over a year, the duct-taped mirror rattling slightly at highway speed. You don't fix it. There's a guy at a local business mixer you've been to a few times. He drives a black Tesla Model S with a vanity plate, wears a jacket that costs more than your monthly grocery bill, and talks about his portfolio the way some people talk about a personality trait, loud enough that 3 or 4 people nearby can hear whether they asked or not. He's performing wealth, carefully and at real expense. You showed up in the Accord. Your watch tells time and does nothing else. When he asks what you do, you say you own some storage facilities and a linen company, mostly boring stuff. You watch him do the math on your face, your clothes, the fact that you mention storage units instead of anything with a pitch deck attached to it, and you watch him smile politely and drift toward someone more interesting. That small dismissal is worth more to you than anything else that will happen at that event, because the moment someone stops taking you seriously, they stop watching you, and the moment they stop watching you, you're free to do exactly what you want. People assume stealth wealth is about humility, some enlightened detachment from status. Maybe for some people it is. For you, it's a strategy. The old car isn't a statement, it's a tool. It starts every morning, it survives long drives without complaint, and it draws zero attention in any parking lot in the country. New cars average close to $50,000 now, financed at monthly payments that would easily cover 2 more ATM units a year if you redirected them. You paid $6,400 cash for the Accord 9 years ago and have spent almost nothing on it since besides oil changes and 1 new set of tires. Every dollar that isn't going toward a car payment goes somewhere that compounds instead. It isn't complicated. It's just not popular. Your house tells the same story. A modest 3-bedroom you bought 14 years ago in a neighborhood full of people who assume you're comfortable, maybe doing okay, definitely not anything more than that. They're not wrong exactly. They're just several zeros short. You don't correct them because you've learned that visibility costs something money can't buy back. The moment people know what you have, they stop relating to you and start relating to what you have. Distant relatives find reasons to call. Old classmates reappear with investment ideas that need just a little seed money. You've watched it happen to other people who got loud about their success, watched money change the temperature of a room the second it becomes visible, and it's rarely anyone's fault exactly, it's just what money does to a space once people can see it. So you keep the space clean. The accord, the modest house, the plain watch, the appearance of someone doing fine but nothing more. It costs you almost nothing to maintain and buys you something no amount of money can purchase outright, the ability to move through your own life without being treated as a target. Your closest friend since high school is a guy named Marcus. He fixes transmissions for a living and has talked for years about opening his own shop instead of working for someone else. 3 months ago, he called you on a Wednesday night, and underneath the small talk there was something else. He'd found a location, run the numbers, built a following doing side work out of his garage that customers loved. He needed $60,000 to lease the space and buy equipment. You could have sent it before the call ended. To your balance sheet, $60,000 is a rounding error, a few weeks of passive cash flow across everything you own. It wasn't a financial decision. It wasn't even close to a sacrifice. But you didn't send it. You sat there holding the phone, listening, feeling the specific weight of knowing exactly what you could do and choosing not to do it immediately. That feeling doesn't have a clean name. It isn't guilt. It isn't withholding for its own sake. It's the understanding, hard one and a little bit lonely, that money handed to someone before the underlying business is structurally sound doesn't fix anything, it just accelerates whatever's already broken. If the lease terms are bad, the money makes the mistake bigger. If the margins aren't understood, the money just buys a faster, more expensive version of the same lesson. So instead of wiring the money, you asked Marcus if you could come by his garage on Saturday. You went through his numbers with him, line by line, for 3 hours. You found a supplier he was overpaying by almost 20%. You asked about the personal guarantee buried in the lease, the one that would have put his house on the line if the shop failed in year 2. He hadn't clocked it, not because he isn't sharp, but because nobody had ever sat with him and asked. You went back the next Saturday and the one after that. By the 4th week, he'd renegotiated his supplier contract, found a small business loan program through the county he qualified for, and restructured his opening timeline so he didn't need outside capital at all. He signed his lease 5 weeks later and called you the night he got the keys, voice cracking a little the way people's voices do when something they've worked toward finally shows up. He told you he couldn't have done it without you. You never told him what you could have simply written a check for. You probably never will, not out of secrecy for its own sake, but because his shop needed to be built by his decisions, in a way no check from you could have replicated. There are rooms in your life nobody gets to walk into, and that doesn't get easier with time. It's not the secrecy itself. It's the specific weight of watching someone you love work through something you could remove in under a minute, and knowing that removing it would be the wrong thing to do. The email arrives on a Tuesday morning while you're sitting in a plastic chair at a quick lube shop, waiting on a set of brake pads you probably didn't need replaced yet but agreed to anyway. Subject line, Q2 Portfolio Summary, Final. From Priya. She sends these every quarter, formatted in the same plain font she's used for 2 decades, usually something you skim over coffee on a Saturday. You almost let this one sit unread until after the oil change. Something in the preview lines stops your thumb. You open it. You read it twice, the way you read something when you're not sure you trusted it the first time. Total verified net worth, across all holdings, real property, business equity, and liquid assets, has crossed $100 million. You sit there under fluorescent shop lighting. Somewhere behind you, an impact wrench is spinning a lug nut loose. A guy in a company polo is explaining a filter upsell to a customer 2 chairs down. Nobody in the room knows. The shop doesn't know. The lug nuts don't know. The number exists on a phone screen in the hand of a person waiting on brake pads he didn't need, in a Honda that's been driven for over 200,000 miles by someone who could buy the dealership outright and never notices the option. You thought crossing a number like that would feel different, that there'd be some perceptible shift in the air, a scene you could point to later as the moment everything changed. There isn't one. There's just a waiting room, a mounted TV playing a home renovation show with the volume too low to hear, and a spreadsheet attachment sitting quietly in your inbox. You text Priya back 3 words. Thanks, looks right. Then your name gets called, you sign for the brake job, pay $187 on a card you almost never use, and walk back out to the Accord. You sit in the driver's seat for a minute before starting the engine. 11 years ago, you netted $210 from a used ice machine outside a convenience store and sat with that number on a Thursday night, not knowing exactly what to call the feeling underneath it. It wasn't pride and it wasn't disappointment. It wasn't even something you wanted to tell anyone about. This is the same feeling. Exactly the same, just with a lot more zeros attached. That's not nothing. It might actually be everything, because it means the reward was never really about the total. It was about the architecture, the proof that a system you built with your own patience could keep running quietly, without applause, without anyone in a quick lube waiting room having the faintest idea. You start the engine. The mirror rattles a little at the first stoplight, same as always. Nothing on the outside of your life changes tomorrow either. The storage gates will open at 7. Priya will send a follow-up question about next quarter's projections. Marcus's shop will have 3 cars on the lift by 9. What's different is quieter than any of that. Sometime this week, you'll watch somebody spend real money trying to look like they have it, and you'll notice, the way you couldn't have named it 11 years ago, that the performance of wealth and the actual architecture of it almost never live in the same person at the same time. Knowing that doesn't make Tuesday any easier, but it does leave you wondering, driving home in a car worth less than your last quarterly ATM statement, what exactly you've spent 11 years building, and who, if anyone, it was ever really for.